Hello, we are here for one more lesson of this SprutCAM training course. And today, our lesson it is called Creating Machining Technology. In fact, we will split this topic into lessons. Today, part 1. Next lesson will be part 2. To show you a couple of topics about this, we are seeing, and I've opened this example file which I think it is very good to show you what we need about this part 1 of the topic. So the idea today it is to talk a little about some necessary concepts to create machining technology. So to calculate a toolpath and to generate the CNC code which we need to have to send for the CNC equipment, we need to have a couple of things already organized and structured inside SprutCAM. So we need to have, as you know, which we already talked about, we need to have geometry, we need to have parameters inside the toolpaths. If we need, and in this case we need to have fixtures defined, so a lot of different type of information which we will cover in more detail later on in these lessons, but it is okay to talk about them today. So this is the organization. We've talked already about the structured information we have inside the software, so about these menus and submenus with information structure, about also these tabs which allow to reach different levels of organization. But the idea today it is to start talking about the sequence of things we need to assure. The first one, even that now there are a couple of toolpaths and calculations already done for this example, but the first thing to assure it is to make the selection of a machine and the subsequent parameters of that machine. You can see in this list we are inside the tab called machining, and in this list the first item it is a machine. So when we click on the machine we can define the parameters of that machine, so machines, and we have this kind of window which I can restructure a little in terms of size. So I have a couple of lists of the machines available, and I have also some folders defined to look for those machines. I can add new ones or not. So just to highlight that they have specific places to be located, but we can add new ones or take new ones of this list. And assuming this as valid, the last 30 machines or the top 30 machines, whatever you have. So we have different types of machines. Each machine defined has specific parameters, and one very important notion it is that each machine has parameters, and those parameters define the type of operations that we have available. For example, if we have a lathe, this lathe will not have milling operations, or the opposite. If we have a milling machine, a CNC milling machine, it will not have turning operations. So choosing a machine, then we have a couple of parameters we can define for this specific machine. These are not very functioning parameters important. These are more a description of what we have. But we have control parameters, the behavior for arcs and so on, so tool change and how it will be, and the reference points, so a lot of things, the simulation, the machine state parameters, the scheme, visible or not. So we have a lot of things around here. We will come back to this later on, but the idea it is we can choose the machine in this place. So in the machine it is defined and its parameters. Then after the machine done, we need to have or to define a machine sequence. Machine sequence, it is this list of operations that will define first roughing operations, then semi-roughing or semi-finishing operations, finishing, remachining operations, and so on. Okay, and when we click in one of these operations here, we can choose from this list of items, not events, items, a couple of things like the setup, like the definition of the job in terms of geometrical entities, strategy, and so on. So there are a lot of things also around here which allow us to define what we want to calculate. It is important to notice also that we have a couple of symbols which give us information. So in front of each of the operations, we have these symbols, this green symbol, which means the operation is calculated. We can have, for example, a cross, which in our case we don't have, which means the operation is disabled. So we can disable this. If we do it, let us try. I don't want to do this on this one. It will allow me to make me another item. So I can have this disabled operation, okay, or enable operation. I can have this symbol also, which means that this operation is not calculated. So if I go here and say run, it will run the operation. I'm not sure if with errors or not, but it seems that it calculated something in the back of my part. And I can see also, if I click with my right mouse button, if I say properties, I can see the status of this operation in particular. So it is enabled, machining time, the toolpath link, which is also important, and so on. And another important thing, in front we have this circle with colors, which we can also change to different thing to say my operation will be a different color in any occasion, but with the idea to be more clear, to be visible among the entities we have also for the geometry. So this is the sequence, but as you understand, to have this sequence we need to create operations. So operations new, they are grouped like this, so roughing, finishing, rest machining, auxiliary operations, 5-axis, scripts, 2.5D our axis operation, and this one which will create a recognition of the holes and features that we may have in our geometry. So for example, roughing, if we need a roughing operation, we choose from the ones we have here. So roughing a waterline, and we have a new roughing waterline operation around here, and then define the parameters. This is important because when we go and define this operation, then we may enter the specific operation and define all the things, all the parameters you see about the tool, about the feeds and speeds, lead-ins, lead-outs, and these are the parameters we will see in detail later on. So global parameters of the behavior in terms of the z height and so on, the strategy for the movements of the tool, trimming of some specific areas, and so on. So a lot of things which allow us to define almost everything. So clicking in new, we can see this window with a different look, so roughing, and it will create filters, and we have also this kind of figure to give us a nice idea of what each of the toolpaths allow us to create. So I think this is also not very difficult, and as we've seen, after we have all the parameters done, simply click on the operation and say run. I'm not sure what it is done or defined, so just hitting the button to have a calculation done. So the calculation, it is done, as you see in the symbol, and it is presented on the graphical area. It was quite fast, so but I will try to do another one. So hitting run, you see this bar below. Let me try to increase a little the time. So distance, let us try to increase a little more so that we see the button. So you see the time and the progression of the calculation, it is shown below. After this done, we have two important operations. The first one is to make the post-processor file for the CNC equipment. So we have a couple of definitions also possible to define. So which tool paths we want to post-process. What is the file that has the configuration to make the post-process? So we choose a file. In this case, we'll try Heidenhain. We have a couple of informations about the post-processor, which will be important in some cases for the output file. After everything's done, where is the output file? Simply go and say run. Okay, I'm not sure what is the errors, but let us create something, and we have the file here. So quite easy to create this. Another important feature for the tool shop, it is the tool list, or a paper layout or machining report, as they say here. So we can have this kind of display. We have preset positions to create this display. We can see the fixtures or not, the tools, so the tool holder, everything it is possible to define background, to put dimensions. I'm not sure in this particular case now how to do it. I'm not see if it is disabled or not, but okay, not very important. The part, take this out, the block. So everything it is possible to create in this machining report. Even the possibility to have more than, I have only one window, but we can split this. So everything it is possible. We can add also a couple of informations about who created, who developed, the responsible, whatever. So very nice. After everything done, we can create export in XML, or simply create this, and we have a machine list with all the relevant informations that we need to send to the machine, to the tool shop, so that they can use the correct tools and they know what they are doing. Finally, another very nice and important feature, it is the possibility to have machining sequences where it is used when we have very similar parts with the same parameter. So we are allowed to grab parameters already defined in one toolpath, save them, and import them to apply to another toolpath. Okay, this is a very simple example, but let us use, for example, this roughing waterline, and clicking with my right mouse button, I can do an export operation. Simply, I will call it 1, so not very important. I will open another file which I've used very recently. We have an operation, but I will simply delete it. So just using the geometry. Probably not everything will be completely correct, but the idea it is to show you how to import these parameters. I will create also a new roughing waterline operation. And now I can go on top of this operation, simply import parameters. We'll choose the same file. And if I go and hit run, probably I have some mistakes here, which I will ignore. Simply with the same parameters, you see that, okay, in terms of the heights and so on, but you see that I'm able to very fast, very easy, and I should assure that everything it is correct, which it was not the case, as you can see, but I can very easy and very fast create something. So we could, as you know, also we could then slow down this a little. We could easily start and simulate the cutting operation to check if everything it was correct. So these are the basic ideas for this first video of about creating machining technology. I hope this will give you a couple of new tools and ideas about SprutCAM. Any help, any support you may need, you know that you can contact us through the usual channels. Anyway, we have additional informations which may be relevant for your work or knowledge in our online platform called Area 51, which, if you feel interested to assess and to check what we have there, you can contact us also through the same channels, so that we can give you all the information about how to assess it and what is going on there.